My name, at this point, is insignificant. I will likely reveal it later, but John Doe will be a fitting alias in the meantime. Before I disclose some of the files I have gathered, I will need to clarify more regarding myself and why I am doing this. Hopefully, this will give you a bit better insight into me. I am, in the absence of a better term, a sociopath. But unlike the ones without inspiration and self-destructive conduct, I had rooted in me good life skills by my father, after he caught me standing over the fourth cat I had killed. Believe me when I say it wasn't out of malevolence. I question if it was even curiosity, and I am not pushing to make a horrible pun. I just did it. He wanted to know the reason for my actions. I explained that these animals were following me, and I found it irritating. When I questioned if I had done anything inappropriate, he was shocked. He tried to explain that the cats I had massacred were other people's loved pets who wished to know where they went. I didn't comprehend why this was so essential. But the urgency in his tone made the appearance that, while I may not have cared, others would. "Am I going to prison?" I asked. He stared at me for an instant. "No, John. You won't. But I must comprehend why you behave this way. If you don't control yourself, your activities could have a sinister outcome, so I will show you how to integrate with the rest of the world. It will be challenging, but the lessons along the way are invaluable." Long story short, he trained me like I was a freaking soldier. A rigid schedule, and strict discipline. Regular drills into hypothetical situations, but never aggressive. There were moments when I could catch the hunting mindset he might not have even been conscious of, would try to take over. But he kept it in check. Being familiar with military bases for most of my life, the discipline was tight. Years later, I would answer the call from Uncle Sam and enroll in the army. I did pretty well. While I did not comprehend why others did these horrible atrocities, I knew they would have their reasons and motivations. The rest of my years were, I believe, ordinary. Nothing of meaning seems to appear in my mind, but it is not like I have a fair point of comparison. I was in the late years of my service. I was recognized as a competent soldier who was reliable. One time, during an evening operation in a country that I could not speak of due to specific laws, my crew was conducting surveillance. A potential intruder was recognized, and we were to confirm the identity. A few crew members strolled into the forest that evening. Only I walked out, and it is the one actual and decisive juncture in my recent years. Deep into the woods, we were in traditional search formation. Jacobs witnessed a piece of wood cracking and signaled us to stop. As our eyes scanned the surroundings, a rushing beast charged us and managed to take Hill down. A loud crack shortened the excruciating screams. His neck was definitely broken. Smith further investigated, but was immediately yanked into the woods before anyone could do something about it. "Should we open fire?" I mumbled. "Negative. Our guys might still be out there." As we took our knives out, we witnessed how another guy was pulled into the woods. There were 3 fighters left, and the fear was indeed taking over. "Screw it. Erickson," shouted loudly, who was next to me. As soon as motion was detected, Erickson began firing. We watched as the shots hit this creature, but no visible wounds were seen. This large, and slim creature, banged its fist onto Erickson's skull with a crunching noise that I can't explain. I was then grabbed and tossed to the side. I was stunned and visibly shaken. I could hardly listen to the shooting and growls that were more than feral, if that makes any sense. Nodding my head, I forced myself upright. The firearm was useless, and this creature was too fast and powerful to be a human. but didn't fit any animal I was familiar with. Some disturbance in the forest could be heard around me for around 3 taut and long minutes. They appeared to vanish into the woods ultimately. I was preparing to head in to look for my men when I sensed it standing right behind me. Empty. It stated. This pale being stared into me with dark, sunken eyes. The picture of a scrap of meat at the butcher's, sagging by one of those gigantic hooks, instantly popped into my head. Empty. Repeated. Then it suddenly turned around and vanished. I couldn't move a finger. Far away noise suggested this thing was getting further, but the pace appeared more calculated, like it was dragging the dead soldiers. I fled the scene, heading back to the base. After an intense and severe debriefing, as well as threats of court-martial, I was permitted to stay in service while undergoing treatment. A severe mental meltdown was the diagnosis, while that unit was deemed MIA. 4 units were sent to find my old team. Only 3 people came back. When I got the opportunity to see them, we just shook our heads once. We knew. After the army, I chose to investigate the cryptid phenomenon further. I was determined to uncover the creature that slaughtered my crew, and several others, during this time. The so-called Wendigo. My hypothesis about the Wendigo's appetite isn't that it pursues human flesh to survive, but humankind. The actual soul is what these creatures seek. Knowing it lost it when it ate human meat, it believes it might regain it in the same manner. Not recognizing it is the action itself that will condemn it to stay a Wendigo. I am no longer on active duty. I research the cryptids now. I have gone further than most fanatics. I chatted with another combatant, who requested to remain anonymous, about the deep web, and the best way to use it. He described the essence of some of the sites in the dark web. But I clarified that I wasn't looking for that, but the back channels. What they called the deep web. He provided me with a copy of his browser, which he named The Fly, because it was tiny, and looked insignificant. He showed me the setup, and I thanked him. After the setup, I finally went into the dark side of the interwebs. I was experimenting with the program, and in the end, it worked flawlessly. Some red rooms were exhibiting their, let's say, entertainment, and I was capable of slipping past most of the moderators. One was highly aggressive in his measures, but the setup for this software made IP tracking a useless effort. I don't fully comprehend the intricacies, but I know that person, and trust their craft. So I dove into the deepness of the deep web, seeking legally classified records. All of a sudden, I stumbled across a forum of coroners. Unlike other coroners, they didn't deal with killings, suicide or ordinary mysteries. Their targets were usually all cryptid or supernaturally connected. I cited my interest in their gigs, and explained I was looking for answers. Some members were not comfortable with my presence, but they actually recognized me when I described my meeting with the Wendigo. Apparently, specific information from highly regarded psychiatrists can make it to them, if certain words were employed, and the doctor did not suspect fraud. They proposed a deal, archived some of their cases, and learned more about what transpired to my crew. They didn't appear to have an issue if I was to publish most of the details, but they cautioned that most wouldn't bear the reality of this world. But if I could garner some interest, they would allow it as long as private details were bypassed. I would come to understand why later on. But I agreed. This is the end of the introduction. Make sure to stick around, because I'll be disclosing the very first case I was involved with, and you don't want to miss it.